I think we've learned something from those exercises. I hope everybody's getting me.
Yes, yeah, you're clear. You disappeared for
Okay,
a while.
great. Yeah. I think I dropped. I dropped. Someone was trying to make a call, so I needed to do something so that people don't disturb. But I hope people were encouraged to see that you could make so many thousands of rand or a Malangan from just a 50 rand. And when we give you exercises in this empowered worldview process, we will not give you anything that we've not tested and something that doesn't work. So I think most of my team members may have tried something similar, and we know that it's possible. The question I have for every one of you is, how many of you can safely or honestly say, since you were born, you have never handled a 50 Malangan? Please raise your hand. And as you are raising your hand, you just know that the Holy Spirit is also seeing you. Okay, so basically we are saying each one of us have handled 50 Malangan before. So then my question is, if you've handled that amount of money, and from the group work that you've done, you've been able to see that it's possible with a small capital of 50 Rand to raise up to 70,000. Why haven't you raised that 70,000 since you were born in 30 days? That is a very serious question. And as we learn, as we go through our presentations today and tomorrow, we shall be able to see why some of us have not made that amount of money and why it's important for us to revisit our enterprise practices. Now, generally in the African setup, and this is not just for Eswatini, but I guess it goes across Africa, our education system usually prepares us to be employed. And we are going to examine why employment is important, but why also as you are employed, you need to prepare yourself for private enterprise, because when time arrives when you have to lose that job, you may find yourself going into destitution if you are not prepared to handle the out of work aftershocks. So this exercise really prepares us to begin to do something, even though we are at the place of work. Those 8 hours that we talked about, from the 24 hours, you have your 8 hours at work, your 8 hours of sleep, but then you have the other 8 hours which you can use to do your private enterprise, starting with that small capital. So let's go back to revisiting the 8 hours then. Just talking about sleeping. If you are sleeping for 8 hours every day, we know from simple mathematical calculation that in 3 days, you'd have been sleeping for 1 day. In 3 weeks, you would have been asleep for 1 full week. In 3 months, you are sleeping for 1 month. In 3 years, you are asleep for 1 full year. So by the time you hit your 30 years of age, you would have spent 10 years asleep. This notwithstanding the hours that you sleep when you're under 5, because under 5 you sleep more hours because you're still a baby. But then by the time you are 90, you'd have slept for 30 years. So if we add the other 8 hours that we probably fail to account for, that is the 8 hours of sleeping plus the other 8 hours where you don't know what you are doing apart from cheering the rich people, then most of us will spend our 90 years with 72 years having been spent asleep and maybe just watching soccer, movies and cheering other rich people. So we need to begin to re-examine our time. What is it that I'm doing with my time? How many hours will I spend in my garden? So I'm going to reshare my screen again so that we continue from where we ended or where we went into doing that exercise. The picture that you saw there is basically the exercise that you were trying to do, translating the 50 Malangan into more than 5,000. Now, usually what will cause you not to do simple businesses like selling your mealies, you call it mealies or maize, it's the feeling of shame to say, what is it that people are going to see when they see me by the roadside selling maize, roasted maize? Because of the dignity that I have as a doctor, how can I stand by the traffic lights trying to call people to buy my maize? That feels like I'm losing my dignity. What is that dignity? The dignity that the world view has given us, that for you to be normal, you need to finish your education, go to university, get a master's degree, and then be in an office comfortably wearing a necktie and just signing papers, as it were. So the question I have then is, are you going to spend your life up to the time you retire at maybe 60 or 65, just signing papers or stamping papers? Or after you stamp your papers at the place of work, can you go back home and get to your backyard garden and begin to do something? When you do your own backyard garden, it means you mitigate the expenses. You don't need to buy vegetables because you have vegetables in your own garden. You don't have to buy tomatoes. So you save significantly on your revenue. So the lady that you are seeing in that picture actually and her team were able to raise that amount of money within 12 months, working resiliently in their own enterprise arenas. This lady that you see just went up to grade 7. She has allowed me to share her story. She only went up to grade 7, but in the area where she was living, she became what I would call the richest woman in that particular district because of her passion. And she is an elder in the church. She's a church woman, very passionate. She's about 67 years old, but still energetic and is able to do those, keep those animals, do the maize, and she's able to do other businesses. She has restaurants, and they're doing great farming in the area where they are. The cows that you see there, after we trained her and the group in enterprise, we gave them the insight of how Jacob would multiply those animals, you know, the speckled and spotted concept in the Bible. And when she got that idea, she was able to make sure that in 2 weeks, she was adding about 4 animals to her sheep, to her cattle pen. Every 2 weeks, every 2 weeks, she would add 2 extra. So if she sells the 2, she would be able to get money enough to make her buy 4 animals. That's how powerful her story is. But it started just like we are doing here, learning to start with 50 Malangen. For her, she started her business with 20 Malangen, and now she's one of the big business gurus that we have. That is her maize shed there. And so that is just an example of what you could have done. I saw one group which tried the best, even in the face of COVID. At least they came up with some innovation, and that was excellent. Pastor Amon just shared that picture with me, so keep it up, that's good. So the longest line then links to the 50 Malangen, because when you do the longest line, it stretches your brain to think beyond the status quo. As they say, think outside the box. In this case, we don't just need to think outside the box. I think we need to throw away the box, so that the box, if you're just thinking outside, maybe the box might force you to go back in. So we think beyond the limitation of what society has given us in terms of what other resources can I use to start my business. Ladies, you may probably have in your shoe racks 10 or so layers of shoes that are lining up, and you can't even remember when you put on the last pair. So you can pick some of those pairs, sell them out, and have some kind of investment capital. Maybe it's clothes. You can start a second-hand clothes selling business and raise capital from there. If you are married, you are a lady, and you did a kitchen party maybe 10 years ago, you've kept some plates in the display cabinet. They're waiting for people we don't know. You can pick some of those plates, use them as souvenirs, and sell them at the souvenir auction, because maybe those plates may be out of circulation, but there could be treasures that some people can buy. And that way you generate some investment capital. Otherwise, you just end up keeping your plates there, get to your 80, 90 years of age, and the plates are just looking at you, still new in your display cabinet. So what is it that you have around that you can use to even start a simple business? Just to take you through a quick journey, some of the pictures that will show, and I think Wandile and team, you also get ready to show, to share some of these stories. Today we'll share some of these stories, and then tomorrow I'll give you some practical approaches towards beginning to build your business empire in your area. So these are examples of people that we've reached. This was the members of staff. 52 of them were laid off from World Vision in South Africa. And the challenge was, where do we move from here? How easy will it be to live or to navigate through life after losing the job? And this is why for members of staff, we always say, when you're at the place of work, prepare yourself for eventual termination or leaving the place of work. Okay, so the young lady on the right is from Mozambique. Also, after learning on enterprise, she decided to start something, and that's a salon. It became one of the biggest. I still think it could be. Maybe we try to link up with Mauricio, our colleague in Mozambique, to find out how she's doing. But this is about 2-3 years ago. And you see that now she's passionate and doing something. The husband is also part of that. He's able to participate in selling in that salon as well. The picture on top, I was told Pastor Makawe is around, and that's good. That is their church, actually. This is the Mbabane Alliance Church. It was such an honor for me last year to be invited by this great church and just to share from the perspective of partnership with World Vision, courtesy Sakile and other team members, Pastor Makawe and Pastor Elvis. And we had such a good time when we had the forum that Pastor Amon arranged, where we had I don't know if it's a council of churches, I can't remember properly, Pastor Amon. But when we did the training, the bishop of the Alliance Church, the Mbabane Alliance Church, sent 2 representatives, and that's the pastor who is with us now, and his colleague, Pastor Elvis, and they participated. And then I was invited to come and share to the broader church. So for me, this picture has become very memorable because of the passions. Maybe at one time we may ask Pastor Makawe to just be able to share some of the issues in terms of what is happening in Mbabane Alliance Church after that awesome experience. Below you see Mrs. Msonda, that's my wife. Maybe at one time she would navigate and pass through. You'll be able to meet her. But this was a group that we're training from what we call the Small Scale Farmers Group. Now this is actually an internet-based forum. It's a forum that you can join on the internet. It's a small scale farmers, farming as a business. They have over 470,000 members worldwide. So part of the executive is what we were training here, just to try and steer them into expanding the enterprise model of farming. Pastor Richard on top, our colleague from Malawi, also having gone through the training, they felt with the wife, they can start with doing cakes, simple things like shelling groundnuts. The young lady you see in the gown had just graduated from university, and then the employer decided, okay, we cannot employ you anymore because of certain challenges financially. And you can imagine when you are expecting to have a salary increase, then they tell you, you no longer have a job. That's devastating. But she never gave up, still went on, took the insights of farming and started doing the agro production. I think she has over 2 or 3 hectares, and she's able to take care of the orphan children and support other relatives around. The young man you see on the right, he's amazing. He's from Malawi. But what is exciting for us is he's very strategic in terms of doing his business. And tomorrow when we discuss the marketing aspect of Empowered Worldview, you'll be able to see how you can use simple approaches, but very strategic. You can see that he's selling ladies' shoes. And I guess you know why he's selling ladies' shoes, because to sell men's shoes, you need a lot of prayer and fasting to get even 2 clients from the men. But for the ladies, they don't trouble God so much with prayer. They will just come and buy as soon as they are feeling led to buy new shoes. Our sister Sanile used to be the director of operations team lead for World Vision South Africa. And they were among the very early people that we trained. And she was trained right there in Swaziland, actually. And after getting the training, went with passion and resilience to go and mobilize her family, and they started doing the gardening. So these are stories of even high-ranked officials that do not consider, say, I'm an operations director or operations team leader. I don't need to touch the soil. She still went back and started farming. And among Pastor Amon, if you remember, Sainile came with Chipo. Chipo also, after having learned in Swaziland on Empowered Worldview, and this is the same time that we trained Wandile, I think. It could have been the same period. It was just a few minutes of training. People mobilized the husband and they started that chicken. You see those chickens, those could be about between 20,000 to 30,000 chickens. And they were also doing gardening. So I was honored to be sent this picture from the couple. to say these are the first runs that we made after that awesome training, and we went straight into executing what we have learned. So you can also tap onto this kind of a skill. We have another lady. This is another one from Limpopo in South Africa. After learning, one of the things that I'm able to teach is to teach you how to do earrings. I'm not sure if I've converted that energy to anyone in Eswatini, but in case not, maybe next time I come, I'll try to teach some groups on how to do earrings. But for our sister Irene, she went further and started making the matching shoes, handbags, and other things that were more complicated than what I taught them. So you can see there, in this particular event, I think if I remember well, I'll need to counter check with her today later. She should have raised not less than 15,000, I think between 15 and 25,000 rand in one expo when she was selling her merchandise. And the picture on the right, she said, this was my first white client that came to the stand to buy my shoes. So she bought everything that Irene, almost one of everything that she had displayed there. Okay, this one, ladies, if you are good at making cakes, here's an example from Zimbabwe. So you can see that Empowered Worldview has reached out to many quarters, and we say, if you are not really called to farming, go into the gift that God has called you to execute. And this lady is particularly gifted in making those cakes. I like the Bible there. So pastors, if you have a person who can do something like that, she made the Bible. I think it was the graduation cake for a pastor or a man of God. Then you can see the uniform there. That uniform is not really a uniform, it's a cake for the ladies group. And then for the children, so all kinds of events she's able to do. She does that house. I think that was like a traditional wedding or something. And that's the cake that was made there. So that's the skill of innovation that we can all venture into. This is Memoyo from Zimbabwe. Here is a pastor who makes those sandals. I think Pastor Amon in Choma, you may have met Pastor Kampamba. He makes those shoes. Yeah, so this is amazing. I think Pastor Kampamba could have been there. Sakile could have also met him in Livingstone when we did the training in Livingstone. You can see how beautiful the shoes or the sandals look. I enjoy wearing sandals myself, so I'm passionately one of his clients. There could be someone in Eswatini who may have this skill. The fact that you are called to be a man of God does not mean that you can't do something else using the gift that God has given you, like our pastor here is showing. Those are my earrings, so I'm able to do those earrings. What you see there is the Zambian flag, the green, orange, black. I did this when there was an independence anniversary, and within few minutes, I was able to raise over 2,000 rand just selling this within minutes, maybe 20 minutes max. I was able to make that amount of money just selling this. This is part of my gifting. I can make a set within 10 minutes and sell sets worth 2,000 within 10 minutes. That's a miracle, but it is workable.